welcome again to Classic Film, Montgomery Clift, and Other Great Actors podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Joseph Cotten. Joseph Cotten, why so overlooked and underrated? Is there a more underrated actor than Joseph Cotten? His extreme versatility allowed him to play any genre with ease and naturalness. The everyman, not flashy, but nevertheless starring in some of the greatest films ever made. Indistinguishable from his characters, he is almost an actor without his own identity, therefore perhaps forgettable. Perhaps this may explain the fact that not only has he never won an Oscar, he has never even been nominated. Or, as Orson Welles once summed up, erroneously to my mind, quote, "You're very lucky to be tall and thin and have curly hair. You can also move about the stage without running into furniture. But these are fringe assets, and I'm afraid you'll never make it as an actor. But as a star, I think you might well hit the jackpot." End quote. Joseph Cheshire Cotten, Jr. was born on May 15, 1905, in Petersburg, Virginia. Even as a child, he was a gifted storyteller and showed great acting potential. Accordingly, he was sent off to the Hickman School of Expression in 1923 at age 18. During this time, he would play football professionally for $25 a quarter and later worked as a lifeguard as well. He did some civil theater in Miami before moving to New York to try his luck on Broadway. He, at first, did not have all that much success and would try other venues such as radio and modeling. In 1931, he married Lenore Kipp. In 1934, he met Orson Welles, who would play a large role in his life and film career. They worked on a radio program, The American School of the Air. Orson thought Joe was a great comedic actor and put him in a play called Horse Eats Hat, which brought him to the attention of one Katharine Hepburn. In 1937, he was invited to join Welles's famous Mercury Theater and starred in several productions. As I just noted, Katharine Hepburn had noticed him and seemed to have some influence in getting him a role in The Philadelphia Story, playing C.K. Dexter Haven, the role made famous by Cary Grant in the film version. Also in this play was Van Heflin, playing the Jimmy Stewart character. This play was a huge success, having a very long run. However, when the film was about to be cast, they were not interested in an unknown stage actor. It was suggested instead that Joe call his old friend Orson, who had contracted with RKO. Orson was happy to cast Joe in his upcoming masterpiece, a little film he called Citizen Kane, now recognized by critics everywhere as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, film ever. There's some video clips from Citizen Kane on the Joseph Cotten blog on my website at Classic Film, Montgomery Clift, and Other Great Actors if you'd like to see some video clips from Citizen Kane. Not surprisingly, he had little trouble getting work after Citizen Kane. He starred in Lydia, 1941, and then back to another Orson Welles movie, The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. He had more of a leading role in this film and puts together quite a moving performance to my mind, certainly worthy of an Oscar nomination. Tragically, this film was edited by RKO before Orson Welles could get to it. A good hour was chopped from the film, a real travesty, as we can only guess what this film might have been had it been properly edited. Even with the horrible editing, it is still a very quality film. And there are also some clips from The Magnificent Ambersons on the website. Joe then went to work on another project with Orson Welles. He and Joe rewrote the screenplay to Journey into Fear, 1943 themselves. In fact, Joe is listed on the credits for the screenplay. Sadly, it was not a big hit at the box office. Honestly, many of Orson's movies were not, even though he is not credited as the director on this particular movie. It did seem, though, that Orson thought of Joe as his right-hand man when it came to his films. Perhaps the thriller aspect of Journey into Fear made Alfred Hitchcock think Joseph Cotten would be perfect as the lead role in his next film, Shadow of a Doubt. This is really a great role and performance by Joseph Cotten, and Alfred Hitchcock often claimed Shadow of a Doubt as his favorite film. I often find a similarity between Joe's character in this movie and Robert Walker's character in Strangers on a Train, and wonder if Robert Walker didn't unconsciously or consciously model his character after Joe's Uncle Charlie. You can see some clips from Shadow of a Doubt on the website. Joe and Orson in 1943 created the Mercury Wonder Show to entertain troops. Orson collected his usual band of actors, which always included Agnes Moorehead and also his then-wife Rita Hayworth. This was quite a success with the troops. David O. Selznick thereafter approached Joe asking him to sign a contract. Orson graciously released Joe from his contract with Mercury Productions. He immediately made Gaslight 1944 with Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer. This was really an excellent movie and a good box office hit, directed by the great George Cukor. Of the four main actors in this film, Ingrid, Charles, Angela Lansbury, and Joe, all were nominated for an Oscar except Joe. Ingrid Bergman did win for Best Actress. Joe went on to do a series of films for Selznick, most of which were hits, and he was voted 17th most popular star in 1945. Proving that he was capable of almost any genre of movie, he was cast with Gregory Peck and Jennifer Jones in the western Duel in the Sun 1946, which was a huge box office hit. He was again teamed with Jennifer Jones for Portrait of Jenny 1948, for which his portrayal won him Best Actor at the Venice International Film Festival. In America, where he was such a hugely popular hit with fans and critics alike, his name was not even mentioned for any awards. In 1949, Orson Welles and Joe again worked together on another masterpiece, this time a British film noir called The Third Man. This has often been touted the greatest British film ever. Also in this film is British great Trevor Howard. This film deserves the accolades and is beautifully acted and shot. And you can also see some clips from The Third Man on my website. After The Third Man, Joe then had a series of flops. Though he worked with some of the best actresses in the business, Bette Davis, Ingrid Bergman, Barbara Stanwyck, nothing seemed to be appealing to American audiences. In 1953, he did make a notable film noir, a rare color film noir, with Marilyn Monroe. This particular film was a huge box office hit, most likely because of the presence of Marilyn. This film is another really good performance by Joe that is probably overshadowed by Marilyn, who also has a nice performance here in a different kind of role. And you can see some clips from Niagara on the website. Joe spent most of the rest of the 1950s doing theater and television work. Similar to the Philadelphia story, he played Linus Larrabee in the Broadway production of Sabrina Fair. However, when the movie Sabrina was cast, he was passed over for Humphrey Bogart. In 1960, he faced the tragic death of his wife Lenore from leukemia. He then married actress Patricia Medina the same year. He performed in more theater and television roles in the 1960s. He had roles in the films The Angel Wore Red, 1960, and The Last Sunset, 1961. However, his most notable movie in the 1960s was probably Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, 1964, with Bette Davis, Olivia de Havilland, and old friend and co-star Agnes Moorehead. He did make numerous films in the late 1960s and in the 1970s, but of little note, perhaps with the exception of Soylent Green, 1973, which does seem to have a following and some critical acclaim. Joe would say of his later films, "I was in a lot of junk. I get nervous when I don't work." Joe did make a couple movies in the early 1980s, but then suffered a stroke causing his speech to be affected. Longtime friend Orson would talk to him on the phone frequently to help him with talking. He was most kind, as when Joe would mix up his words, Orson would say, "That's a much better word. I'm going to use it." Joe did write an autobiography, eventually entitled Vanity Will Get You Somewhere. Orson asked Joe for the manuscript when he heard of it, telling a friend the book was gentle, witty, and self-effacing, just like Joe. Orson died the day after. In 1990, Joe was diagnosed with cancer and had his larynx removed. He wound up dying of pneumonia on February 6, 1994, age 88. Joe is once quoted as saying, when talking about directors and their favorite movies, Orson Welles lists Citizen Kane as his best film. Alfred Hitchcock opts for Shadow of a Doubt, and Sir Carol Reed chose The Third Man, and I'm in all of them. And when assessing his own acting ability, quote, I was a so-called star because of my limitations, and that was always the case. I couldn't do any accents, so I had to pretend. Luckily, I was tall, had curly hair, and a good voice. I only had to stamp my foot and I'd play the lead because I couldn't play character parts. End quote. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Like someone else said that much earlier in his career. What do you think about Joseph Cotten? What is your favorite performance? Do you think he deserved an Oscar? Tell me in the comments. This is the end of Joseph Cotten, Why So Overlooked and Underrated. As always, please subscribe to hear the newest podcast, and please check out my website and blog at Classic Film Montgomery Clift and Other Great Actors to find blogs and video clips from all the podcasts. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next podcast.